Do you ever wonder how much interaction you should have with the teacher you're subbing for? We'll talk about it today. Grab a dozen donuts because it's episode 12 of Substitute Teachers Lounge. Guys and gals, it was a milestone week, I'll call it, for Substitute Teachers Lounge. We crossed 1,000 plays of the podcast on Monday. Things are going great. I really appreciate you all taking the time to listen to this, to share it with other substitute teachers, with other friends. I've also noticed that we're pulling in close to, we're approaching 300 plays per week now. So obviously, the majority of those plays have come in more recent weeks. That means we're growing more exponentially, as I mentioned before, than we have in the past. So I really appreciate that. There's some other things that, because of that, now that I know that it's kind of taken hold and we're going to continue it for the foreseeable future, I've done some other things to allow you to offer your feedback. As always, I always mention my email address. That is gregcollinssubstitute@gmail.com. I have a Twitter account. You can find me at SubTeachLounge. But I want you to mention, too, that I now have set up a Facebook page. I know a lot of you are on Facebook, and a lot of you are more comfortable in interacting with Facebook than actually taking the trouble to maybe send an email or actually tweet on Twitter or something to that effect. The Facebook page is also called Substitute Teachers Lounge, and it's active. You can find it right now. What I foresee happening, I've only made 2 or 3 posts to that, but I really want it to be a place where you can go and talk about the most recent episode, talk about topics that you would like to see come up, hopefully talk about your desire to be interviewed for the podcast one day. And again, I want this to be a lounge where we all interact with each other, and I'm hoping this Facebook page helps us with that. So please go to the Substitute Teachers Lounge Facebook page, click the like button, follow that, and it'll make things go a lot more smoothly and help us all grow together. I will also mention something that I've never really mentioned before, and that's if you feel the need and the desire and you want to leave some feedback about this podcast, some of you already have, but if you're listening through the Apple environment, the Apple Podcast, you can go to Apple Podcasts, search for the Substitute Teachers Lounge podcast, and leave. You can either write or give a rating, 4, 3, 4, 5 stars, however you like. You can make suggestions there, but that helps us reach out more as well and get some more plays and get this growing as much as we possibly can, because I really want it to be a place where everyone is comfortable coming and discussing things. I've already mentioned that we'll talk about some things. Everybody's going to be a little bit different about teacher interaction today, so the fact that we have a forum like the Facebook page and this podcast to discuss those and move forward, I think is great. We don't all have to agree, but I like it that we all share our ideas with each other. So let's begin this way when we're talking about teacher interaction. One of the things I like to do to interact with teachers is look for discussion boards and that type of thing. I want the Substitute Teachers Lounge Facebook page to become that. Right now, I follow Substitute Teachers Cafe on Facebook. That is a nice discussion group. I know a lot of you are listening, have found out about this podcast through that, and I really appreciate that. There's some good people over there. We really share a lot of good ideas daily. I mean, I read posts on there daily, and they've really been helpful for me. So that's one place you could go. That's a way to interact with both other substitute teachers and teachers. I know we have some full-time teachers that follow that. I will say that I have also listened to teaching podcasts, and here's what I would like your help with. Some of those, several of those, I've actually reached out to and contacted them because I would love to have them be interviewed on this podcast as well. And they have a reputation because of their podcast. I would love for them to come and share their thoughts about substitute teachers. I mean, we want to do well as well. We want the teachers to be pleased with those of us that substitute teach. So I think they have a lot to offer. Now, I won't say that I'm aggravated. I'm more disappointed at this point because most of them that I have contacted have not gotten back to me. So I would encourage you to do this. I've got a feeling if you're listening to this podcast that you listen to others as well. So if you listen to any of the podcasts that were set up for teachers, let them know that, let them know, give them some feedback that, hey, we've listened to the Substitute Teachers Lounge podcast. We would like to hear you on there one day and give us some ideas about where we can go and how we can better interact with teachers and how we can grow as substitutes. I think that will help them maybe to get back with me and we can feature them on future episodes. So that's one of the first ways we can interact with teachers. Secondly, and really most importantly, is how we interact with the teachers we substitute for. Now, there's several different ways we can go with this. Let me first mention that my very first day, I went in and it was a 6th grade class. It was a science class. I remember it to this day. We talked about the nuclei of atoms. So it was interesting. I remembered it from my childhood, but I hadn't done a lot of that lately. So I noticed on the teacher's desk that she was also out the day before, the prior day. I also noticed that one of the ladies had left several different notes about classes, and she left a business card. Now, I've read that some of you leave business cards for your teachers to find the next morning. Now, this is not going to be a popular opinion, but I'm not a big fan, and I think it might even do more harm than good, and here's why. I would just basically share with you what other teachers have told me. Now, as I enter into this discussion, I know that business cards are working great for a lot of you. Keep it up. I mean, if that works great for you, keep it up. Make sure that, you're doing that in an effective way, and we'll talk about that now. What I noticed with the very first teacher was she told me later that the business cards that she receives, she often loses. They're small, they fall out. What she said she preferred was just the fact that I both leave some notes about a class that I had for her, and then leave my phone number on those notes. And then she keeps those. She has all of those together. The business cards, she told me, were small. She often loses them. And if that is the only way you have left your phone number, you might actually have less of a chance to get another job with that teacher. What I do, I also have thought about this, and some of the teachers have told me that some of the business cards that have been left was right after the teacher, kind of blasted the class that she had. So, maybe the substitute said, left a lot of notes about how this class was bad and this class was bad. They didn't behave for me. And, oh, by the way, here's my business card. I'd love to come back. Obviously, that's not going to go over very well. If you leave a business card, I would think you want to attach it, but make sure you write out some notes about the good parts of the class, how much you love those kids. Make sure you tell that teacher that you really want to return and interact with those kids because you really had a great day, and even on the issues that came up, you all grew together. I've had some of the teachers tell me that they had some substitute teachers that not only left a business card, but left them up and down the hallway. They went into the doors of every teacher. Now, I know maybe that's how the sales world works, but in this case, for this school, it really became a turnoff to them because they both felt that teacher was desperate and was trying to push themselves on the other teachers. And instead, they prefer the substitutes that They hire them by their actions. They hire them because they're popular with the kids, but they also hire them because they got those kids to do their work. So a lot of the teachers would prefer, instead of business cards, write down some notes about the class, leave all of your personal information there. And for that reason, I'll probably never do a business card. I know they're cheap. You can get a bunch of them now for maybe $10. There's plenty of websites out there. But I would encourage you, first of all, if you've already got business cards, use them. But if you don't, try this other method. It's funny, I've substituted after teachers that have left business cards, and I know for a fact that because those teachers also did some other things that the kids weren't crazy about, and maybe they didn't get them through the classes they should, and they left some mean notes, well, those teachers never got called back, and a business card is not going to help in that situation. So I would encourage you, the classes you want to come back to, leave good notes for that teacher, not a book. I've talked a couple of weeks ago about how a teacher that left a book and tore down one of the classes, I took it upon myself to make sure that was the best class of the day I was there. But just make sure that you leave those good notes, you leave all of your personal information, you give those kids a reason for you to want to come back, and you give that teacher a reason for her to want you to come back. To me, that's the most important part. You don't need a business card to do that. If you like to, if that's what you like to do, feel free. But my experience is let your actions prove themselves, and you will get all the calls that you want. Now, other ways that I've interacted with teachers, it's interesting. Last week, I had 2 days with a middle school area that I had taught last year. All the kids already knew me. They were 6th graders that had gone into the 7th grade. The teacher left me some notes and said, I felt comfortable that she left me that, because she was comfortable enough with me now to let me try and handle a situation. The interaction I had with her was always professional. We joked around a lot too, so she trusted me to carry out some wishes that she had, because she had one period that had been disrespectful to her, and she had to leave the next day, and I came in for 2 days, and she left notes for me that said, "Greg, please read this to this particular period. Let them know how disappointed I am in them. Put them in a seating chart and see if we can go from there." So she trusted me. She interacted with me to take care of that. I did it. I read the paragraph to them, put them in a seating chart, and I said, "Listen, guys, I've taught you a lot. You guys are better than that. Don't disrespect your teacher." And it's very interesting. We had a great class that day. They were extremely quiet. They behaved for me, and hopefully, I haven't talked to her since that point in time. I'm sure I'll be back with her class in the next few weeks, but hopefully I helped her improve that class, improve their interaction with the teacher, and improve their ability to listen to and learn the way they should. So that was a great way to interact with the teacher. I had built up her trust, and she trusted me to handle a situation like that. I ventured to say there's not a whole lot of situations where teachers actually trust the substitute teacher to handle difficult situations. So I was glad I had established that, that sensitivity with her, that she trusted me to do that. And that was really great for me. That helped me a lot. I think there are other ways to interact with teachers. I kind of giggle when I say this, because you're going to run into a lot of teachers whose own personal children you also teach. Now, don't give them special treatment, but just realize that they're going to give their father or their mother feedback as to how well they like you as a substitute teacher. So I go out of my way to interact with those teachers, especially. I had a class I was in last week. I had a 3 students who are children of a teacher I had taught for. They all came up to me and welcomed me back for the new school year, and we had some great interaction. And that trickles over to their parents. Those parents will call me back to substitute as well. It's just another way to establish rapport with those teachers and interact with those teachers to help us grow as substitutes. And I'll tell you this again. I know when Mr. Morgerson was on our last podcast, he's a high school basketball coach, and we talked about extracurricular activities. It happened again this week. I had to referee volleyball 4 nights during the week. And my night off, I just happened to notice one of the area volleyball teams was playing an important match about 20 minutes away. So I drove over there to watch it. It helps me to observe other referees to improve what I do. But I also wanted to see those kids too and encourage them and see how well they did. I had to remain unbiased, of course, because I referee for both of those teams. And one thing that I did, since I wasn't specifically refereeing that match, it gave me the opportunity to interact with some of the parents and teachers from that school. Now, here's what happened. I noticed that there were several teachers there watching the match. I talked to them a little bit. I didn't come across strong. I didn't act like I was desperate for them to call me back. I just interacted with them and talked about the volleyball team, and it just kind of builds a camaraderie. I also talked to 3 or 4 of the parents of some of the players, and they know me now. They've seen me enough that they smile when they see me. But, I actually got to talk to them like I never had before. Some of the students that I've had most often, I talked to their mothers, and we talked about how I got into substitute teaching and how much I enjoy having their kids in class. And the parents react to that positively. They share that with their teachers. They talk about how their kids enjoy having me as a substitute. That can do nothing but good when you're in that situation. So I know we're all busy, but if you can ever go to some type of extracurricular activity of these students, and to be honest, you're kind of selling yourself. You're trying to show them the lives of your kids are important. I want to be a part of it. I want you to trust me. I want you as teachers to call me back. It's important for me to have a part in these kids' lives. Parents, it's important for me to have a part in your kids' lives. Please let me know what I can do for them. Now let's talk about interacting at lunch. I never was really, when I substitute teach one day at a time, I typically eat in the classroom that I'm teaching in, and I don't really have that much interaction with the teachers. I did, however, when I was a long-term sub for 9 weeks, I began eating lunch with that group. Now, I didn't really participate in their conversations as much as I listened to their conversations. If they asked me a question, I responded. I told them my opinion. I told them what I thought of certain students if I was asked. I was once asked by one of them, has this student ever given you any trouble? And to be honest, that student had not. So I shared that with them. I told them some of the things I had tried. When I ate lunch with them over several weeks, then I felt like I had the rapport that I could share my thoughts with them. But I did a lot more listening because they're the full-time teachers. They're the ones that have to deal with the students day in and day out, including their parents, including their grades, including everything that goes along with it that we as substitutes don't often even see. So I wanted to let them know that I was there for them, anything they needed me to do. I was there to listen. They didn't ever hear me gossip about any particular teacher that I had come across. That's not my style. I think, for me, I come across better the less I talk negatively about other people. I think having a positive personality is what gets teachers to call you back to substitute for them again. So I would encourage all of you to take that approach. Be as positive as you can. We're not all going to have great days every time we substitute. We're going to have a lot, but sometimes we have to deal with issues. But let's try our best to deal with those issues and move forth in a positive way and show these teachers that we want to interact with them. We think that what they have to teach us is also important. In addition to what they teach their kids, we want to be a part of their success. We want to do what they need us to do to make those students better. You know that I like to have about 15 minutes of my own every class period. I like to share some of my own thoughts. But by all means, one of the worst ways I could interact with teachers is if I did all my own stuff. If I didn't look at their notes, or I didn't press to have the students complete their assignment because I wanted to go on to something else. So all that is a way to interact with teachers. You cannot believe, I know this for a fact, how much those students talk to their teachers about their substitute teachers. So we need to come across well to the students. We need to have them make their work done. We need to make their class fun while they're getting their work done. And we need to, leave the notes positively to the teachers so that we can get to the top of their substitute teacher list. You might be in a situation, too, where you're actually teaching with that teacher, or maybe they have a workshop at the school that day and they're dropping back in. Now, you can't be knowledgeable about every subject you teach, but if you are, math is my thing. I can usually hold my own in a math class, and I think, when I substitute taught for the lady for 9 weeks who was getting ready to leave, and I shadowed her a few days, I know that she thanked me so much of walking around and interacting with those kids, not just sitting in a chair and watching them do their work, but walk around, maybe point down to some problems they were doing that they did correctly, but they just did something silly with the arithmetic. And, just tell them to take another look at that. A lot of the students, even while the other teacher was in there, would call me over to help. That teacher is really going to act positively in that respect. So work towards that. Work towards gaining the confidence of the kids. Even if the teacher's not in there, those children are going to tell their teacher the next day, I like that substitute because they actually walked around and tried to help us with their assignment. Those kids become comfortable then with raising their hands. Mr. Collins, what do you think here? And sometimes I will say, I'm not exactly what the teacher is looking for right here, but I would approach it this way. And then, if they want to tell the teacher the next day that the substitute gave me this idea, that's fine. Make sure that you interact with those students positive way, in an upbuilding way, I should say. And that's going to trickle back and help you to interact well with those teachers as well. With that in mind, and I hope this comment doesn't come back to bite me, because some of the things that I have read, some substitutes say that, when they respond to someone that maybe had a bad day in the classroom, I've seen replies to that to the effect of, well, when you walk into that classroom, you just have to show them who's boss. I know you guys know me well enough now that, I'm not a big fan of that either. When you walk in a classroom and immediately, I've used this example before, start acting like the beast instead of the beauty of the classroom, and start acting like you're the big bad boss and everything you say goes, that is an immediate turnoff for those students. Instead, come in confidently by all means, but let them know that you're there for them, not the other way around. You're there to help them. That will trickle back to the teacher you're subbing for too. They will say to that teacher, we really like this substitute because they started out positively. They treated us like we were the age we were. We felt confident in sharing what we were putting in our worksheets, and we really had a positive effect with that teacher. All of that is going to help with your interaction with the teacher you're subbing for. And one final thing I'll say about interacting with teachers, don't be a suck-up. That is so easy to tell. It's like you're walking onto a used car lot and you're giving the hard sell to somebody about how great you are. That's not what teachers like to see either. I've had them share that with me. They just like someone that will be a nice, friendly personality to have in their class that will help the kids learn. They don't want you to be pushy to them. Now, you know my personality by now. I joke around a lot. with both the kids and the teachers too. You have to be careful with that. You don't want to insult them with your jokes, but I like them to joke with me. I joke back with them, and we all have a good time with that. But don't overcompensate. Don't push yourself on them so hard that it actually becomes a turnoff, and you will be happy with the results. I do think this whole episode today is about how we get positive results from the teachers, and that's a form of marketing as well. We just don't have to push ourselves so hard. That is a way to get us to the top of that teacher's list. Teacher interaction, it's important. I want you to feel confident that if you go in positively to kids and positive to teachers, you will receive positive results. Treat others the way you want to be treated. It's amazing how well that works. You've heard me, I'm an old man, so I use the phrase, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. I know I've used that on several episodes. So be nice all around. You will be shocked at how well that goes. Even with the students that are giving you an issue, if you respond to them positively, you're going to get a better feedback, I guarantee you, than if you respond to them negatively. I'm going to say one thing that I'm reluctant about before this podcast is over. It's not about teacher interaction. It's about something I did. I'm not a big fan of advertising on the podcast. I don't want it to turn into that. But I do want you guys to know that I think you know from the podcast that I put these kids above everything. I try my best not to be judgmental. I won't judge those kids. I won't judge the teachers I'm teaching for. I won't judge people in general. I wanted you to know that I wrote a book about that last year. I'm not saying this because I want to get sales up. I just want to know what you think. It's a short book. It's got 25 chapters. It's designed, to be like just a short reading per day until you're finished with it. If you want to just read a little bit about how I'm a big fan of not being judgmental, the book is called Religiously Speaking. It is not a religious book, so to speak. You won't see me trying to convert anybody to anything in that. And in fact, I'll encourage you, it's on Amazon. I'd encourage you, don't buy the hard copy. I think it's too expensive. Just go ahead and buy the Kindle. I never really read until I got a Kindle, and now I read about 20 books a year because it's so easy. I read multiple books at a time. It's called Religiously Speaking. Buy the Kindle version. In fact, I would encourage you to get on Amazon, look at their preview. You can the chapters are short enough, you could probably see 3 chapters for free. Just do that if you don't want to buy the book, and let me know what you think. But I say that to say this. I am not a judgmental person. The reason the book is called Religiously Speaking is it's kind of just the opposite of what you think. It is saying that those of us that are religious people, we too often judge others. We too often act like we're better than them, and that is not the way it should be. So that's just a shout out. You won't hear me say too much, if anything, again, about that book. But if you're interested in finding out how I feel that people should not be judgmental of others, it's called Religiously Speaking. So do whatever you want with that. If you know a bunch of teachers, just get one copy and pass it around. I'm not in it for the sales, but I would sincerely like to know what you think about it. So it has been a great week. I am still trying to set up multiple interviews. Everybody is busy. I know, Mr. Morgerson's episode last week, it's one of the most popular. It's already passed in place 3 of the episodes that I did earlier in this podcast series. So that was really encouraging to me. I'm glad you all like that. But this was episode 12. We'll see you next week on Substitute Teachers Lounge. Music provided by Ben Sound.